Welcome everyone to I'm really excited about this. Sorry. Welcome to Designing Adobe XD. How are you all doing today? I am Talin Wadsworth. I'm the lead designer of Adobe XD, and I've been so excited about this for weeks now. I today have on my good friend and partner in crime from Adobe XD. I have the director of product for Adobe XD, Andrew Shorten, joining me today on the stream.
Hey, finally. 37 episodes in, I heard, and finally I get an invite, so it's nice to be here.
I didn't want to I wanted to keep you in reserve, you know, like when I really needed you, just like pull you out and like.
I'm getting concerned now about the expectations. You're building it up too much.
No, we're not gonna. Let's not build this up too much today. Okay. Even though I am very excited about having you on, and of course, as Matthias is noting here in the chat, King of Sneaks.
Director of Sneaks.
The director of Sneaks is calling out here in the chat. You never know. I don't know.
I think we have a couple of sneaks. Maybe. Later.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Let's. Temper the.
I think we should build up to the sneaks.
We'll get there. We'll get there. How's everybody doing in the chat today? Thank you for joining us. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing so many familiar faces in there. Of course, Mr. Howard Pinsky. Zaryeb is a regular on the show. Mr. Tom Kirchhoff.
Wow, hey Tom.
Joining us. What's going on, Tom? He's gonna recognize a lot of this. Tom was with us back in the early days as well. Mr. Michael Chase is in the house today. What's going on? Eric, Lee, there's Lee, Kate Ohm from the team joining us, product manager as well. How's everybody doing? You guys excited for Friday? You guys excited to talk some design, talk some XD? Of course, we're here and we're gonna be telling kind of the story of XD a little bit. We're gonna touch on some of kind of our past. We're gonna talk about Andrew and his journey here at Adobe. Because I've always been fascinated by everybody's sort of journey here. I mean, this is a place where I think everybody just loves tools. I'm interested to hear a little bit of that, have you share some of that, and then we're gonna talk about, kind of the early days of XD. We're gonna be talking about maybe sharing some special stuff there at the end.
Yep.
So, but if you guys have questions along the way, let us know. We're happy to answer any questions you have, and This is why we
pretty much any question.
Pretty much any question. There might be a few no comments, but if you ever wanted to know what if Andrew, he's of course from the UK.
That's true.
So if you have, maybe he can answer these questions. Definitely not about sport though. We found that.
I'm actually a very good Britishism.
Nah.
I don't follow sport. I don't drink tea. So
it's all right. So all right. Maybe we'll stay away from that. We'll talk about what we can like. I think Andrew. One of the things that really, when we first started working together, when you come across someone who shares a similar passion for what it is they're doing, I feel like that I immediately sort of sensed that in you the minute we started working together. And so, I was surprised to find myself here at Adobe. I never really saw myself in this position, but now that I'm here, I'm just like absolutely love it. So seeing a kindred, having that kindred spirit is always a pleasure to work with. But tell us a little bit about yourself, about how did you end up here at Adobe doing what you do?
Feels like a long time ago now. But so originally I was actually working in web design, web development.
Yeah.
And I was working for a consulting company in the UK. Mm-hmm. And as part of that, I was using way back Macromedia tools. And so I started with Dreamweaver 1.0, Fireworks 1.0, all the original versions of those.
Wow, yeah.
And was using those day in, day out as my tools.
Yeah.
And as part of that, I was just getting pretty close with some folks at Macromedia and was working with them. And so an opportunity came up just to work for Macromedia. And where I started was just going out and talking to people about tools. And part of this was just sharing experiences. Mm-hmm. But increasingly it became listening to challenges that other designers and developers were having, them trying to take on these bigger, more complex projects. And my role was to help them understand how Macromedia tools could help them with that. Mm-hmm. So a lot of time was spent just listening and helping them to adopt tools like Dreamweaver fireworks, Flash. And then for those that were way back in the day, Flex was something I worked on, which was a way of building rich experiences. And so I spent a lot of time just helping customers, designers, developers, organizations use those tools.
There's something about that even I knew back when before I was working at Adobe and I was just getting started in design. Macromedia tools felt, I don't know if this is the right word, but bespoke. They felt like the designer's design tools.
I think there was a craft. I feel like a craft.
Yeah, there's a craft to it. Yeah.
And I like to think, although I'll let everyone else decide, that we've tried to bring some of that craft on the journey.
I think that's what I'm really I'm kind of connecting to that.
Yeah.
From the sort of inspiration or the influence of Macromedia.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is I loved those tools. And so I was just initially just an evangelist for those tools because I loved them so much.
Yeah.
And the craft that went behind them. And fast forward now, the funny thing is there's working with super smart people on the XD team, some of whom actually worked on Dreamweaver 1.0.
Crazy.
And so the people that inspired me with the tools that they created and the craft that they had to get into this profession and to spend time building experiences, and I get to work with every day, which is just amazing.
Yeah, that's a dream, really.
Yeah,
it
absolutely
really
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's just talking to customers directly. Talk about what did you see when you were talking with them? What were some of the problems you were trying to help them solve at the time?
Yep.
What were the problems they were facing?
Well, a lot of, at the time, it was around, creating these richer experiences, going beyond sort of static web pages and trying to think about how you create choreographed experiences and get customers to be successful using those experiences. And this isn't age-old and continues to be a problem today, how do you bring all the people together, right? How do you get the designers and the developers and the business people who are setting sort of expectations all together and being successful working as a team?
Yeah.
And that problem, existed then. I think for many of us that problem still exists today, and we're on that journey to try and make it better.
Yeah.
But that was often at the core. It was how do you bring smart people, tools, technology together to solve problems?
Yeah.
And so I would spend time, evangelizing, consulting, partnering with them to try and use them in a productive way.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And one of the sort of the consistent pieces I found along the way was that I'd get feedback. People would say, oh, it'd be great if the tools could do this. Or I'd watch and observe, and I'd see them try to use the tool in a way that we had created it, but then try and do something different with it, solve a different problem. And so you would learn either directly, because they would tell you, or through sort of observation, or through the questions that they were asking around other things they wanted the tools that they needed for them to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you also start to see opportunities of how you could influence the tools that at the time Macromedia, then Adobe was building.
Yeah.
And so I got to a point whereby I loved going out and talking to people, but I just had this energy of, I want to take all this information I now have and do something about that.
Yeah.
And so for a while I gave feedback and I passed it on to the teams who were working here. But ultimately, I was very fortunate. I was able to, with Adobe, relocate from the UK to the US. That was 10 years ago now, and move into product management and actually, be on a team that was creating products, and that was quite a shift, from being the person who talked about product and got people excited and then listened, to then actually, okay, well, now I need to take all that information and parse it and prioritize it and figure out a plan that actually helps those customers be successful.
Yeah, actually go and put that into practice, in the products itself. I mean, I've been really obsessed with that journey at Adobe as well. I felt like really haven't been able to put the right pieces together really until sort of built up an experience like, and XD feels like the culmination of a lot of that. So, but you mentioned something, and I want for those maybe who maybe aren't as familiar with maybe the industry or the UX design or software industry overall, talk a little bit about product management. So now you kind of hinted at it, that you were out there talking with customers, they're having these problems, and you're looking for ways that the product today, as it was then, could help them. But now you wanted to join as a product manager and actually try and put some of that like into play. So tell me about how you define the role of product manager, like and the things that you do that you bring to bear on the project to really help it kind of get out into the world.
Yeah, and it's been like anything, it's a journey, right? You learn as you go, and you figure out how do you make impact. I actually remember when I moved from the UK to the US, there was first off the cultural shift of just being a different country.
Yeah.
And then there was the reality of, well, I knew I had all this energy around the pain points that customers had and what I thought they needed, but I'd never been a product manager before. And I didn't actually know what one did. So it was a little bit of a sort of like panic mode of like, oh, now.
It's always a little nebulous, I found sometimes, depending on who you talk to. But
so I've spent time since then trying to figure out, well, what do I do? And what I've seen and sort of learned as I've gone through that journey is that product management is often sort of at the hub. It's sort of the connection point between a variety of different people that all need to work together. And so product managers often are out observing, listening, thinking through pain points that customers have. The explicit ones they're telling you about, but also the sort of the ones you just observe and see. They're also then translating those problems into ways that designers, engineers, people on the team can rally around and think about, well, okay, if that problem exists, well, how should we solve that? And so facilitate that sort of discussion, debate, exploration. Of course, there's many problems, right? There's many things that you can do.
Many features we could go into.
Many features you can do.
Any one time.
And in many cases, if you guys are asking where's feature X or feature Y, it's probably my fault that it's not there. So you can
direct it.
So you can blame.
You've opened the door, man.
I'm used to that. You can blame me for that. And so a big part of it is actually prioritizing, right? Choosing what to do and what not to do.
That's a hard job.
So, a big part of that is obviously influenced by listening and understanding. I mean, everyone on the team wants to solve challenges that designers face day in, day out. That's what we all wake up in the morning wanting to go do. The reality is you can't solve all of them at the same time. That sometimes there are technology reasons and constraints that mean that something simple to solve actually is complex to solve and it takes longer than you'd like. There's also, in the mix of all of this, like fitting it in with, just a broader business strategy. Like, companies have strategy. Adobe has a strategy. And so figuring out
into that,
how does the problem you want to solve for the customer, whereby there may be a solution that comes from the combination of design and engineering, then also fit into just an overarching sort of plan, one that makes sense, and not just for the product, but for all the other things that are going on.
For the business,
for the
really.
business.
You're really the hub between that part of Adobe, and that's part of the bigger sort of,
That's why it's like the hub of the intersection. I find that what I love about a product manager is that, and for my team, is that you're the energy, you're sort of the velocity around wanting to go solve problems. And you create excitement and energy around that. And then you bring really smart people, and we're so fortunate on the XD team to have an amazing design team, amazing engineering team, and great product managers that all come together, energized and focused on building XD.
I think we've really seen the results of that in the last 6 to 8 months, in particular. I feel like we've really hit our stride. But
it's been 4 years, man.
I know.
It's been 4 years of hard work.
Exactly.
I agree with you. It then translates into. It takes a while to make it all happen.
Well, so I wanted to talk about, like, I like that setup because I brought some stuff to share from the very, very first days of us working together on what would become XD.
Yes.
But first, I also wanted to take a chance to just say hi to everybody who's joined us here. I'm joined by today the Director of Product for Adobe XD, my longtime partner on this project, 4 years now going. And we wanted to say hi to everybody. Jagdeep joining us from India, up early, late in India, late. In India. Jagdeep, thanks for staying up late to join us.
It must be almost Saturday at this point.
Yes, yes. Scott, how's it going? Of course, I think we said maybe missed you earlier. Tim, of course. Alex, how's everybody doing? You guys have any questions for Andrew while you're here, while he's here with us today? Of course, he's always available on Twitter, very active on Twitter, Mr. Andrew Shorten as well. We can talk about maybe that.
Well, that's just to me, that's just the part of the learning, right? I mean, and I've talked about that with our team, other teams in the company. Like, I make it my job to spend time listening, talking to customers every day.
Yeah.
I feel like if you step back from that, then you're missing out.
Yeah,
right. You need to keep on learning every single day.
I mean, that's why. I mean, that was I think the impetus behind the live streaming show as well. Is like we get this chance to sort of talk directly and actually test our ideas in real time.
Yep.
It's really exciting.
And I've seen you design features before now.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's good. And getting some feedback, and then they've gone and voted on it in user voice.
Yep. It's all good.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about like. What were you seeing? Let's talk about Sparkler.
Yep.
And if anyone doesn't know, that was actually our first name and a little homage to Macromedia, to Fireworks as well.
Because I don't know if everyone knows, but I was also the person that ultimately.
I never
should say this enough. Well, Fireworks was something that was dear to my heart and many others.
Yes.
But we had to make some hard choices around where we invested, and so ultimately, deciding to not continue Fireworks was something that myself.
You're the one.
Sort of. Well, not
you were
solely,
part
of that process of making a decision. But we all took something away from Fireworks that then I think fueled what came next.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to your point, like when we called the project at the time Sparkler, it definitely was in reference to Fireworks and many of the great things that came from that project.
Yeah. I mean, I was a huge user of Fireworks, and I had never used it myself until I came to Adobe. And I saw all the designers here at Adobe using it. And then, of course, I had to join the team and kind of get full into it. And the thing that I loved about Fireworks that has really been carried with me into XD was that it was for screen designers.
Yep.
Everything about it was tailored to creating great results for the screen, which meant I could trust its accuracy, its output, right? Like it gave me everything I needed in sometimes very inelegant ways, but it gave me everything I needed as a screen designer, like right there in front of me. And I think when we were thinking about, like at the time, like when we got the word that the resources were going to be shifted and we were going to focus on other things, like there was real crises, but it almost like it coincided with this need, this desire that we had overall to start to make our work more engaging, right? Like part of a designer's sort of job is to present and tell great stories and to get other people on board with those ideas and those concepts. And static comps were just not cutting it.
Yep.
And so even before Fireworks was given kind of the sort of sunset, often the sunset, we were looking for ways to enhance our tools when it came to storytelling, right?
Well, I think that, it was the intersection of a number of things. And again, that's another area where I think product management often leads is trying to see through the strategy, like where should we be going next? And not, on its own, but then sort of galvanize support and bring people around to rally around, where we should go next and build up some of that momentum.
Yeah.
And so the situation you described was, Fireworks for numerous reasons, but essentially from a sort of technology standpoint, the platform really wasn't one that was going to last for another 10 plus years. And so sunsetting it was sort of inevitable, unfortunately. But then looking around and seeing, so we have these, incredibly powerful tools in Photoshop and Illustrator, but they didn't represent necessarily sort of the solution for this new sort of emerging sort of at the time, fast-paced, iterative sort of design. As you said, they were designed in an era where it was static, so pixel screen design.
And that's the way you interacted with the web, was from screen to screen to screen, all chained together in an interactive tree. But there was, you really were moving from one static page to another static page.
Exactly. And the tools, even for that sort of static creation, were incredibly rich, but not necessarily focused. And so I think at the beginning of this conversation around Sparkler, it was, hey, Adobe really should have something in the collection of tools in Creative Cloud that is really focused on UI and UX design, thinking about the needs for designers to tell stories, tell narratives, to present ideas, and to communicate. And
at the end of the day, I mean, that's really the challenge, right?
And so it really felt like Adobe should be thinking about that collection of challenges for designers and spending time on it.
I mean, and that kind of cues up, like, so I pulled up from the archive one of our original decks.
2014.
Right? 2014. Like the tool that we use to tell that story here at Adobe. So from our research, from our engagement with designers, from our knowledge of the tools that we had, again, that knowledge of, and of course realizing like how our own work was changing, right? Like that was kind of the thing here. So we wanted to build the tool to help us do our job better as well. And so this was one of our first decks. As you can see here, we were also again thinking about not just the software, but also the surfaces and the platforms upon which work was being done more broadly, right? Like more communication. I need to have my work accessible everywhere. I need to be able to, of course, as on top of just being able to sort of design these beautiful sort of experiences, I need to have it available to me everywhere. And this screen, I think, really kind of represented kind of that vision. We were really trying to set that up.
And I think from the outset, we looked at it more broadly, rather than it's not just another tool from Adobe. We need to think about the platform or the solution or all the pieces that you're going to need as you are ideating, designing, prototyping, collaborating. And when you start to have these initial concepts, it's not that you can necessarily deliver all of it, in a year or 2 years or 3 years, but you paint a picture of where you want to head.
Well, we need to tell, and like I think it was the thing that we were trying to about that platform, about connecting these ideas and helping people work better, just more broadly, not just building a tool. Is that that was kind of a foreign concept to Adobe at the time. That like it was not just about the tool and the features inside that tool, but it was how the designer utilized that platform to collaborate, to get feedback on, and that was really, again, us defining, like what we did in this deck was we really, I think, defined what UX and screen design was about, but then we also tried to tell a story about how then these designers need to work with others to make their work happen. Right?
I spent a lot of time really digging into not so much just the creation, although that was really important. And we looked a lot at where the friction was and pain points, and often software gets in the way, right? The dialogues and the panels and the things you have to interact with to get something done. But it was also just having an opportunity to take a step back and say, well, yeah, we have tools and we build tools, but really understand, like, where did designers spend a whole bunch of time? And actually a lot of it's around communication, getting feedback, responding to the feedback, keeping everyone up to date. And so that became a bigger part maybe of Sparkle than we maybe even first thought as we learned. And I remember that first year we just spent a lot of time traveling. I think I probably overspent on the travel budget a little bit as we went around, but like watching, observing, learning, meeting with people, talking, understanding where the current set of tools were working, not working. And some of those were from Adobe, some of them weren't from Adobe. But often designers were sort of left trying to like merge them all together and sort of make them work. And we just thought, well, maybe there's a better way.
And you handle the pain, you find what works for you, and you just keep doing it because that's what you've got to work with, and you've got to get your work done, right, at the end of the day. Right, like, and so in this deck, I think we were kind of uncovering some of those themes, of course, the needs around the features and the tools, defining kind of what modern screen design, experience design really was for users. Again, this is way, if you look at this, you kind of see like how we were even, again, breaking it down and actually defining like, well, it's all of these tools together that need to sort of work in very choreographed sort of a way to make this happen. That it wasn't about one feature over the other, but all of them had to be represented in service of this goal that designers had. And I think like this,
This is where the reality hits in, right? Because we can, and we should first say like this deck and the slides. We would use this to build support, we'd present to executives, we would get feedback, trying to build up support for taking on something entirely new. And 4 years in, I now realize like taking on something entirely new is a big undertaking.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and so we had to do our due diligence. We had to get support for that, but then we also had to bring it down to reality. And so, you need to transition from that vision into like, well, actually, where do you start? What's our MVP? Like, what's the minimum thing that we could do, so as to get moving on this? And so I think this slide represents, how we thought about that beginning piece of the system.
Pardon me, guys. Little lingering thing going on. Like, and again, like defining, because we were talking about more than just the product, really connecting it and making that case, like, hey, this needs to be its own product. This is how it needs to work, and these are the places in which it's going to connect.
Well, now looking at these slides, the funny thing I now remember for back 4 years ago, and so we would spend all this time on slides and telling the story and telling the narration. But just to prove that a prototype goes a long way, right? I remember in many of these meetings, Talin would just sit in the back of the room while I was probably saying something fairly important, but no one was actually listening to me because they were busy watching Talin in the background, just playing and showing some of the early prototypes and builds that we had for Sparkler. And so this is it, right?
I brought it along. Here we go.
Like, wow.
I have the past, the present, and the future of XD.
It's like a trip down
lined
memory
up
lane.
here in my dock. So yes, this is Sparkler, and I think one of the things you and I were talking about earlier too was that just because we said we needed a new tool and we defined the way that designers were going to work, it wasn't a given that we were going to be able to go and actually make a new tool.
No,
right?
Absolutely not.
Like we had discussions about, this is a feature set inside one of our other products.
I mean, we tried it in Photoshop, right? We tried what does prototyping look like in Photoshop, and we built prototypes there too with the Photoshop team. And then we compared and contrasted the different approaches. But recognizing that to go do something entirely new means getting buy-in and getting support, and then building momentum to get the resources and the team pulled together so as to make it happen. And I remember like in these meetings you would do exactly what you're doing right now, which is just sit there and sort of like experiment and ideate and show how potentially fresh thinking and just the opportunity to build something new presents opportunities for being able to reimagine existing ways of working. And I feel like we've done that throughout the life of XD is rather than just take the layers panel from an existing tool and bring it in, we spend a whole bunch of time obsessing about, well, why do you use layers? How do you use layers? Is that the right way to use them? Is there a different way to use them? And so we would spend time doing that, and things like do you have a repeat grid in that?
Yes. I mean, this was really the heart of it, right? Like, the repeat grid was really a culmination of a bunch of thinking around how we could use these features and optimize them for UX and UI design. We were looking at, again, the patterns and the ways in which people were working. And what repeat grid started with this tech demo that NJ, one of our engineers, had. But it wasn't, and all it did was it sort of simply repeated one shape. And that seemed like interesting in the abstract, like that you could do that inside of any design tool. But it wasn't until we started again looking at it through the lens of UX design. How do they work? What are the patterns and the ways in which they work?
And that's a good example of diffusing, right? Sometimes it's design, it's engineering ideas and experimentation, but then fused with customer insight or watching. And we'd also look and go out and see people like sit there copy and paste and copy and paste and align things and move things, and then someone will come along and say, oh, and we need to change that, so you have to then delete the whole thing and start over again. And we were like, oh, like that problem, this idea, they could come together. And then that resulted in Repeat Grid.
And this was the heart of the demo that we showed.
Yep.
We had some other wild things going on in this build, and one I wanted to kind of show you guys, which was one of my favorites, which I'm still missing, is so I want
There's many things. I was gonna say there's many things here. Like some people noticed there's like some mysterious icons on the left.
Yes.
So they represent potentially future tools that may come to XD one day.
They may.
But
may indeed.
Remain secret for now.
Yes, but I will show this one
Okay,
because I love this one. So I used to do this thing where I would go to color.adobe.com and I would extract a color theme from an image, and then I would use that to quickly kind of retheme my designs in Illustrator using the replace color feature, because I wanted to see and sort of test my ideas in different ways and see different color themes applied to it in a way to again, that was really kind of one of the inspirations I think behind design at the speed of thought. Can I quickly try new ideas to see if it's right or not, to test my ideas? And it's not in shipping XD today, but inside the color picker, you can apply a basic color using the color picker, but you could also apply a theme to your design. So you could, basically, these are my themes from color.adobe.com. And when I had an object inside of Repeat Grid selected and I chose one of those themes, it applied it in order, like to those elements.
Yep.
Right, so
Cool.
you saw actually on Behance, they have these new avatars, if you've seen them, that are colored. Like they're a bunch of different colors. They're a theme. They all fit together. Like you can imagine like that feature being applied in that way. So
I think this sort of thing highlights though as well, like, and this was a prototype.
Yeah, this
and
is a
so
prototype.
There's definitely a big difference between prototyping something and then making it for real.
Yep.
And part of that journey is, we're very fortunate because of the work that you and others are doing is to have, this generation of ideas continually flowing.
Yeah.
But then we have to siphon down and sort of focus in on which ones to sort of bring to life and which ones to actually put in the product.
Yeah.
And so, it's painful for all of us sometimes to see these amazing things, but then the reality when you then think about building it, for production across Mac and Win, testing it, making sure it works with everything else. It does sometimes take a little while.
It does.
But we will get there.
Yeah, exactly. I showed off this one. I don't know if everybody noticed it, but I just actually got my patent award on this one.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which is this tool that on any straight line, I could hover over in the middle and I could drag out a perfect arc.
Yep.
I could convert any straight line to a perfect arc.
Very cool.
It was, so they just had the awards dinner on it, and I just got the plaque, the new plaque version, so, wanted to sort of, that's one I thought was, you could see that one maybe coming back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, one of the things you talked about that resonated with me with prioritization as one of the key roles of the product manager, being able to sort of, to have that baseline of research, to have sort of talked to customers and taken kind of all of that and synthesized it, of course, in the technology, in the time we have, and the resources we have, and synthesize that into a prioritized list means some things will naturally fall off of that list, right? And when I think about the design process, similarly, I think when people gain that experience, it's actually the ability to edit, the ability to remove things that are not as a necessity to the whole, which pushes designs into that sort of upper echelon, right? And it's really like those capabilities that again, through experience that you, over time, you gain that ability to make those choices.
And it's amazing to be a part of that process, but you're constantly trying to narrow the scope so that you can actually deliver something. And not spend forever just talking about it. But then you're also trying to make sure that you're being expansive in terms of all of the edge cases, because as we've delved into something, you just learn, right? It sort of explodes, and you see all of this additional complexity and detail that you need. But then one of the other big factors with XD is that we also obsess about the simplicity and the experience and the performance, and so there's a lot of time that goes into all of those pieces as well. And so. Whenever there's a question of which I completely understand where the question comes from, is where is feature X? Why haven't you done feature Y? I see that feature Z was in user voice 2 years ago. What are you guys doing? The reality is that sometimes, a combination of prioritization and then the necessary depth of thinking and the painstaking work that like designers on the team and engineers on the team spend making sure that it all comes together to be delightful takes time.
It does, and it takes building up a really great process on the team. I think maybe briefly here before we get to the really exciting stuff. Talk about again, like it started and there was a handful of us. Right. And once we got the go ahead, we immediately started to have the conversation like, well, what do we need to go and have this list and make it actionable and make it happen, but maintain those core principles that we started with, right? Maintain the sort of driving sort of idea behind XD, the workflow, design at the speed of thought. And of course you've been a huge part of that, both in defining the team and building the team. Tell us a little bit about that journey and about kind of what you've been on in the 4 years since we pitched.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest learnings of all of this, I think, has been scaling something like XD. And as you said, when the era we're looking at here and the prototype we pulled together, there was probably 5 or 6 people. Probably part-time. Because we were actually getting sign off on doing the project. So we all had regular day jobs to do. I was working on Dreamweaver or something, and
I had a few other things like
and then we came together to work on this, and it was like 4 or 5, 6 of us like figuring out how do we define some key principles, what's important to us, what problems to solve, and then to create this early version. And once we got some of the internal excitement around that, I remember the first time we talked about it publicly was at Max. And we showed a very early demo, I think, of that. And part of that was to sort of stress test and to find out, well, how much opportunity is there in the marketplace? Is there a good reaction? That went overly well in a way, in that the reaction was so great that there was a lot of pressure then to actually bring it to life and actually ship XD. And so that was definitely a challenge.
And build it the way we wanted to build it, too, right?
And stay core to those core principles, right? And of which performance and quality have been there from the outset. And so, over that journey, we've scaled the team from 4 or 5 people working part-time to, I think at this point, several hundred people working on XD. And that sounds like a lot, but there's a team we have here in the US, distributed across San Francisco, San Jose, Seattle, New York, probably some other places too. And then we have a team we work with, a core part of the team in Bangalore, India, another team in Bucharest in Romania. And so at this point, the people are working on XD 24/7. Around the clock.
And how many? So we've kept to this to some of our core principles. We're shipping monthly updates. We're adding new features all the time. Like I said, I really felt like the team has really hit their stride. How many monthly releases have we had? What's the number? I always forget the official number.
I know we went past Sprint 100 a while back now, so we're into 100 plus sprints, and must be into 30.
Yeah, we got to be pushing 30
plus releases probably. Because we're on XD 16 since version 1.
But
there
were
that, there was
previous releases before that.
And I think, and so process-wise, one of the things we just, as people come onto the team, first off, it's a smart team. And so you bring people in and you attract people that are smart and that want to be part of this. And being on the XD team is not easy. Like it's high velocity, high energy, high bar. And so, it's a lot of folks. And but as we go through that, we also set the bar and expectation in terms of what it takes to ship something. And we lead by example. And so sometimes we review features and maybe they're close to being ready, but not quite there yet. And so we'll hold them back until they're ready. Earlier in the process, we, as we all do, we go through design review and we actually sort of, walk through early concepts of the feature. We look at the workflow and the flow. And
validate some of that with users,
with customers, of course, all the time. But we also have a really good, way of, I think, holding each other accountable and actually pushing on and pressing on to make sure that we're really doing the right thing. And so it's that type of diligence and attention to detail. I know that folks on the team don't necessarily love having reviews with me because I'll spend time looking and obsessing about every detail. But part of that is what leads us to then create something that hopefully folks appreciate and help them be successful.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I feel like we really changed the way product is developed at Adobe, both in terms of customer engagement, the ways in which we help use like our research and our, of course, passion for the design community and helping define the priorities in the roadmap. And being able to sort of then see those results actually in the product and actually test them live a little bit.
I mean, I think back, when I think back to like when I first started, it was like we would do some engagement with customers, and then 18 months later you'd have a release. Literally was like that.
Yeah.
And now though it's just so incremental and monthly releases and getting different streams of feedback. We have large enterprise customers that work a certain way. We have freelancers that work a different way. We have nuanced requirements for people who work in different regions of around the world. Looking and understanding how designers work in Japan being different to how designers work in the US or Europe.
Yep.
And then we take all this feedback in from Twitter, user voice, these conversations that we have. And so, but that's what fuels the team, right?
Yeah, that's why we do it.
That's why we do it.
That's why it gets us excited to come in here. And now, I mean, Andrew and I could talk about this for hours.
Yes, and we said we have to be careful about that.
So
we'll stop talking.
So we're going to stop talking because we are so excited to actually, we are going to sneak some things.
Yes.
And we're going to sneak some things that I personally am like really excited to add to my workflow. I know.
Yeah, and I feel like we should, and maybe the way to frame some of this stuff is that we try and keep our roadmap sort of thematic, right? We sort of like, we don't plan every single detail, but we sort of set a vision for where we want to head to. And we sort of refresh that vision every year.
Yeah.
And so every year we sort of say, what do we want to try and, hit on in the coming year? And so obviously deepening our support for design and the tools there.
More features.
Richer prototyping and animation, transitions and effects. Being able to help with collaboration. And designers working together, designers working with stakeholders, designers working with developers, and so that's how we sort of frame how we set up the year, and then we have smart folks on the team who really delve into an area and then figure out
what are we going to do?
Yep.
And what order are we going to do it in? So we are going to show. So Andrew and I have been in the squad on. Has been really focusing these features around how designers work together.
Yep.
Right. And so we're going to show off some really exciting features and also a design feature. So, but we're going to start with this one, which is actually again has a huge impact on the way that I work. Right. So I've talked about it here on the show before. This is the design system for Adobe Design.
Yep.
So all of our new products, including XD, we use these components, these UI components and styles that is called Spectrum. This is shared right now as a file, and it's shared out to everyone on the team. But what happens is that they will iterate on and version up this file, and then we have to go and take the new version of these components and then copy and paste them inside and replace them inside of all of our previous documents.
Yep.
We rarely do that because it's so much time, right? And we are always under pressure to keep pushing on to the next new feature. And so here, this is how I start a project: is I'll take and I'll copy these and put them into a new document. But the goal is I want this to stay linked. When I have these here, if the Spectrum team updates this document, I want that to just update in my file automatically.
And I think it's a challenge that comes when you start designing at scale.
Yeah.
I think Adobe has 500 plus designers designing all sorts of different things at Adobe. This Spectrum and this design language is used across large variety of our different apps, and then XD is used to design those experiences. And so, as you say, when those changes take place, well, how do you make sure that it's not organized, it's not chaos, right? You want organization around what's changed and how you flow those things out.
And I know what's the source of truth, and I know that it's the most up-to-date source of truth, and that I can easily integrate it into my work.
Yep.
So,
and folks are using the term design system, to describe the need for being able to design at scale. And we're certainly leaning in to help, hopefully, solve the challenges there. I
think we're on the way. I hope we'll see whatever he thinks.
Yes.
So today, I don't know if you're using XD, you can copy and paste a symbol into another file. and that will then stay linked. When you change it in one file, it'll update in the other.
Yep.
Right. So if I do that and I paste that into a new document, I'm not sure where that's popping up. If that button changes in the other document, it'll update here.
Yep.
Right. But now we've added in this build, and I'm just going to delete this just to make sure we're on the right path. The ability to actually link to the asset panel from the whole asset panel from a different document.
Yep.
So now in this new file, I can actually go and link to that whole Spectrum document.
Yep. And this is enabled by these documents being in the cloud.
Being in the cloud. These are
cloud documents
Yep.
is a new format, I think, in December. And this is powering the ability then to connect those documents together. One of them be the source of truth.
This is a source
for all of your design assets, and then the other one being the consumer.
Yep. So here you can see the whole asset panel from the Spectrum document is now available to me in the new document.
Yep.
So when I go down here and I drag out that button, it'll have that link icon on it. And if that at any point is changed in the original document, let's say they go away from the rounded corners to something a little more reasonable like that, and that's saved, I'll actually be able to then see that there's an update and actually be able to preview it and then accept that change. And now wherever I've used this symbol inside my document, it's up to date.
Yep.
And this goes the same thing with the colors. So let's say I go and I want to edit that Spectrum decides, blue's old.
That's last month.
It's last month. Let's go for a nice deep purple. Great, so now.
We're not gonna actually do that, are we?
No,
Okay.
here, again, I would be able to see not only that the blue badge has been changed, but also that the symbol that uses that color has been updated as well. And I'll be able to then just update those, and now my whole document is up to date.
Absolutely. And of course, and you could have hundreds of documents all pulling the resources from that sort of sticker sheet or original cloud document that had your Spectrum design.
Because I can invite everyone to this document on my team.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing.
We didn't do our caveat before showing these things.
Yeah. Oh,
so these are all work in progress.
These are all work in progress.
You can't have it right now.
Right now.
I'm sorry. We strong-armed the team to give us some very early builds of things that are work in progress, but they are on the way.
We're just they may break here or there,
Yep.
but that's because these are in development builds.
Yes.
So
Okay.
there you go. So we're gonna leave this one behind because we've got two more to
move
get
on.
to.
Yep.
All right. So okay, for this next one, this one blew my mind, everybody. I don't want to oversell this one at all, but this one is insane. This is amazing. All right. So today, if you know and you've used symbols in XD, what's really handy about symbols in XD is if you change it one place, it automatically updates everywhere you've used it, right? But in some cases, particularly when it comes to UI, and as you're adapting UI to scale to different content or to different screen sizes, you need the flexibility to adapt those components in context, but you want them to stay linked to the source that they were based on, right? You want that lineage to stay intact.
Yep.
This build is the first this is the first time we're gonna show this, but this is showing the new behavior of how symbols update to all the instances that they're used in. So I'm gonna take this button here, and I'm gonna make it a symbol. And you can see here, this now is marked as my kind of, in this build, this is kind of my master button here. So now when I duplicate that button, and let's say in this instance, I actually need to, I'm gonna have a different label here.
So you just resize.
I just resized an instance
of that symbol. I've heard people want that.
Yeah, I think a few people want that. Yeah. I just do it naturally because I just feel like maybe it should just work that way.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah.
And now I can, of course, add this is the Andrew button here. This is the Ask Andrew button. Right. So now I can adapt this layout to my content, right? Mm-hmm. But if I'm like, okay, we're gonna go with that. We're gonna try green here. And I go back to the master.
Not the purple. I like the purple.
Oh, let's go with the purple. I like the purple. Let's try that purple again. If I change it from the master, and it will update in any of the instances that have not been changed.
Yep.
That property has not been changed. Of course, then I could also drag this out, and I could go really wild here and really start getting off the reservation, making this here. But again, if I go, and then maybe I'll change the color. Let's change the color to, we'll try something else here. Maybe we can even change the type to, we're gonna go classic Helvetica, right? But again, now I want to go back and change the underlying structure of this button. And again, I don't want to rag on the rounded corners too much, but let's get rid of those rounded corners. Let's try maybe a little more extreme.
Nice.
Updates everywhere.
Cool.
So just gonna show the potential of this one. Okay, so here, when you're sort of speccing out this design system, I have this toggle, right? And this toggle is in the file today are 3 separate items.
Yep.
They're not connected at all. But with this build, what I can do is I can make this one a symbol. Let me group this here. I'll make that one a symbol. Oh, I gotta get the other piece in there too. Right? And now when I copy and paste it, I can actually now make the other state here. But again, so I can have my second state, right? But if I go back and I want to change anything about this, I can make that change here. So we want to fill in this color with a different, the middle with, we're gonna say, we'll go black. And as long as it hasn't changed, it will stay synced.
Yep. So hopefully the goal here will be to be able to really scale up the design and to adapt it for different screen sizes, situations, but still have all of the source of truth in that master that allows you to be able to work really efficiently.
So here's his last example. I'll show this is that same, if I need to adapt this layout to a larger size. There we go. But again, if I go back and I change those buttons, everything stays in sync now. That one, actually that one broke. We won't talk about that. All right.
Early build.
Early build.
That's why I haven't shipped it.
Okay.
We're still working on it.
All right, we've got one more. This is
Okay.
this is the last one. And for this one, we're gonna need both of
Both
our
screens.
screens up. So let me just do this real quick. And I have to jump through a bunch of hoops here because I have all these builds on my machine. But here now, let me make sure I'm gonna close these other ones real
And
quick.
so the context for this one is that, so we added Cloud Documents, and then the ability to share that Cloud document with other people. And so now you can have that source of truth, other people can access it, and so you can share them really easily in your design team. But today, really it's set up for one person working at a time.
Yep. I can't open the same file that you have open.
Right.
Right.
And both work on it
Yeah,
together.
both work on it.
So it's like one at a time. And we've had a long-standing vision for being able to allow everyone to come together and work in documents at the same time. We even maybe demoed
might have demoed
super
that.
early thinking about that a while back.
We may have.
But
Just to gauge, just get some
to get some reaction
Yeah.
and see whether that's something people want.
Yep.
But yeah, so our teams have been working really hard.
Oh, really hard. This has
And-
been one of the hardest problems I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Us work
because-
on.
Yeah. Should we share it?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. So I have this document open on my screen. I'm here with the gradient background. Andrew's got the lovely scene of the mountain. And I'm going to start this document and I'm going to share it with Andrew. Well, first I gotta save it. It's taking its sweet time saving.
This is one where we have to hope that the demo all works. It's live.
Oh boy, this build may be doing us in here. Oh no. Let me restart that. Let me try that again. Come on, XD. This is what happens when I have experimental builds.
If not, we'll be back next week.
Yes, very true. Let me save this first. Okay.
Yep, you're good.
Oh, there it comes. Here it comes.
There we go.
Okay. Now I'm gonna add Andrew I'm gonna invite him to it. Okay, invite has now been sent to Andrew, and Andrew's
shows
going
up
to
over here.
shows up inside this little notification.
Go click on that.
Click on that. And of course now it opens.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
And so now, I think. So you're typing some text,
I'm
and
typing
I'm
some
seeing
text.
the same text in my version of XD.
Yes, you
here.
are. And
And
I
I-
see Andrew drawing that shape. And he's gonna make it red, but I'm like, come on, this is the purple theme day.
This is where you don't let product managers do actual design work. But
But
so I can go in here and I can make a second artboard. So
Yep.
I don't want to work with you on that one. I'm gonna work
Alright.
on my own.
And I'm gonna keep riffing on here and make a repeat grid maybe here.
So we can we can work together, same document.
In real time.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is gonna change the way we work together as a team. I'm
Yeah.
really excited about this.
Yeah. I mean, being able to bring the team together, work fluidly,
Source of truth.
efficiently.
Then link what we do here into other documents.
Yep.
And be able to customize it as much as we want
Yep.
and still stay up to date.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fun stuff ahead.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing.
And so all these things are definite sneaks of things in progress, but our aim over the coming months and through the rest of the year is to be able to bring these to XD.
Yeah. And we can say for everything you saw today, this year for sure.
Yes,
Yep.
that's the goal.
Yep. So thank you all for joining us. We got to run today. We got another great show up next for you. Andrew, it was a pleasure having you on.
Oh, it's great being here.
Yes.
Let's not make it 37
No,
more.
not 37 more. We'll do it before then for sure. When we can go, but then the pressure's on. What else are we going to share next time? I don't know.
I'm sure we'll have more exciting stuff.
Tune in next time. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday, same time. Have a great Friday.
See you.